Oh, that's a great shot. All right, let's talk about how to catch a steelhead, or how I like to try to catch steelhead. First of all, it's important to cast straight. We want to cast straight, and we don't want a big hook in our line when it lands. So instead of trying to cast super far, if all things are equal and we're not in a run that requires far casting, say there's fish from here on out and we don't need to cast anything but the length of the head or maybe a few strips, we want to be able to cast straight. Have it land more or less in a straight line. It's more important that it lands straight and then it goes far if there's fish that are within distance. Just like that, land straight. I don't like it to hit the end of my reel too hard. I like to lay out flat and straight. The second thing is, if you can do it at all, I like to try to air mend. And the reason is because if you can mend it in the air, then you don't have to waste a lot of time and energy on the mend. So if you can at least cast and mend. Cast, hold your rod out to the side so when it lands the line is more up and down in the water. If at all possible, I like to try to tip my rod to the side, there, and have it land like that. See how surprised I am? So then it's straight between my rod tip and the fly, and I can just follow it down through without having to mend. I'm fishing almost immediately. So, and if you can air mend, it's not a big deal at all. You just cast it, stop your rod a little bit high, and then tip the rod to the side. If you can't do that, that's fine, because the second most important thing, or the third, is that you mend and get it out of the way so it can swing all the way through. The worst thing you can do, in my opinion, is to be mending and then pulling and then flopping it over and then mending again and having that fly dart around and do all these weird things that are more likely, I think, to maybe spook the fish. So if you can get your mend out of the way early, right after, if you can air mend it right when it lands, straighten the whole thing out and let it swing through. Or you might not have to mend. And the best way to know if you have to mend or not is to cast Okay, it landed fairly straight. And now the current's just straightening it out. So I don't want to mend if I don't need to. If the line stays reasonably straight, I'm not going to mend at all, okay? And if it has currents that are kind of in and out and wavy and conflicting, it's best just to not try to over mend and get your fly darting around. It's best just to go with the flow, follow it through or lead it through. But if you do have to mend, try to get it out of the way early, okay? So if I'm gonna have to mend, say I'm gonna cast kind of across, like that, and mend. I'm gonna mend and then just go with it maybe, just let it go downstream. And then I'm gonna try to hold really still and not bounce my rod around or move my rod. I want it to be just smooth. I want to go right with it. I want to get my hand just kind of low and work slow so I can relax. and just let it swing all the way through. So, we want to do touch and go casts if we can at all. Just nice easy casts straight. Try not to stir up the water or cause a bunch of ruckus. Stay stealthy while you're fishing in close. I like to do water or single spays. Straight. Let it swing. Single spay casts until you can't do them anymore, okay? Or touch and go casts. When fishing in close, we don't want to be making a big ruckus on the water and spooking the pool. We want to do little single spay casts. And then when we're casting out further, and if you can't single spay or touch and go, then try to just maybe do a double spay cast with the line off the water. High, sweep, cast that way. So a good cast would be to double spay with a high rod tip path so we're not peeling the line off the water. Or you could do a high snap tee. You don't need to peel the line all the time. If you're fishing in short, at first you might want to do this kind of a snap tee. A high rod tip path, high slow sweep, so we're not stirring up the water. What we don't want to do is be fishing 20 feet away or 30 feet away and be tearing it up. We want to keep the rod tip high. Okay, you can cast great like that. And then when you're casting out their ways and you have to use a little more water load, then you're fishing far enough away that it's not that big of a deal. Hopefully. I like to use touch and go casts as much as I can. So there's the cast. No mend required this time. Every cast, you have to ask yourself, do I really need to mend? Or do I just need to hold the back end of my line off the water? Or I need to drop the running line down so the water will swing the running line across and make the fly swing. We're not just casting and mending arbitrarily. We want to cast, see what's going to happen, and then mend accordingly. And then we want to just you'd be better off just not mending at all and holding still than over mending. Okay. See, I don't even need to mend here, but if this current was so fast that it made a big old bend in my line, then I'd want to lift it up and mend. But don't just automatically mend. Think about what your fly's doing and then adjust accordingly, and you might not have to mend at all. It makes it real enjoyable. And then after it swings and it's done moving on the dangle, or the water's so shallow on the dangle that fishing isn't necessary, there's no fish going to be in 2 inches of water maybe, get the fly in rapidly while you're stepping down or before you step down. Get it in, and then get the fly back in the water as quick as possible. Little mend, step with it a time or two, and then hold still. So we don't want to be so relaxed that we cast and then we're behind the curve when we need to mend. If we can, we want to cast, air mend. See, I did an air mend pullback mend accidentally. Now I'm stuck in quicksand, but the fly is drifting down. It wasn't perfect, but I'm not going to try to fix everything. I'm just going to, I would rather fish out as good as possible, maybe not a perfect cast, as opposed to, you know, ripping the line back up, having to roll cast it back to the surface, doing a big messy snap tee. I would rather, if it's not a terrible cast, just fish it out and then not make a huge rucket, step or two, or none. There it is. So move your feet, cover the pool, cast and step, cover the water, cover the country. Don't herky-jerky or fly around. Just take what the river gives you. And if you don't get a fish, just cover more water. Don't worry about your fly. Don't worry about all that stuff. Just find another run and cover it again, or cover the same one again. Most important thing is that you cover the water looking for that fish, as opposed to staying in the same place expecting one to come by, unless you're at the mouth of the river where there's hot fish coming in. But it really will help you if you just move and cover the water. There's a man, and now I can let it lower down itself down the water across the river. So stay close to the bank and try not to go out too far if there's fish where your feet are. It's very important, and it really screws everything up if some knucklehead's out there in the middle of the run, in the middle of the fish, trying to fish. So fishing close first, work your way out, stay close to the bank if you can.